College football has forever changed because one of the sports giants, Nick Saban, just retired, and this somehow affects Colorado and Deion Sanders in a major way.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I am your host, Kevin Borber. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. We are also brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day for free and available wherever you get your podcast. On today's episode, we are talking about Nick Saban. His retirement influences not only college football as a whole, but it directly impacts Colorado in multiple ways because we're going to get a little conspiracy theory-ish. Okay, first of all, his retirement affects Colorado. We'll start positive. It can help Colorado, right? Nick Saban retires. That means all those players on Alabama, those who just committed, those who have been there for 5-6 years, whatever it may be, they now have 30 days to kind of figure out what they want to do with their career. Do they want to stay at Alabama and play for who the new head coach is, or do they hit the portal? We know, based on Brett McMurphy's reports, that the hiring is probably going to happen within the next, he said 72 hours yesterday, so I don't know when Nick Saban retired. So we'll go in the next 48 hours or 56 hours. It's probably going to happen. We're probably going to know who is replacing Nick Saban in Alabama. First of all, before we dive into how this helps or hurts Colorado, I need to shout out Nick Saban. Obviously, he was a pinnacle of college football for my entire lifetime. He showed me what a dynasty was. He showed me what greatness could be, and he showed me a lot of things about college football that me as a kid couldn't even fathom until I got older, and now I have to appreciate it because he's gone, or not gone. Okay, he didn't pass away, but he's gone from the sport. But going back to the transfers, Colorado has made a living in the transfer portal. They currently have the number 3 transfer portal class, according to 24/7 Sports. Obviously, losing DJ Lundy hurt a little bit in terms of what their ceiling was on defense, and it also hurt their transfer portal rankings. But like I saw in the comments before I started, they did just get a new defense line commit from Arkansas in Torian Carter, excuse me. Finished his career at Arkansas with 60 total tackles, 2 pass deflections, and 2.5 sacks. I did a little digging into him because I heard the rumors around him, the noise around him. I think he's a good depth piece. At Arkansas, he was never really like a huge chaos causer, but huge addition in the sense that Colorado needs more bodies and they need more depth, and they get someone who played in the SEC, so that's great. But back to Nick Saban, obviously. There's a lot of players that are going to be looking for new homes. I don't know if Colorado is going to be in the mix for a guy like Caleb Downs or a guy like Jalen Milroe or someone like that, but I'm sure there's quite a few backups or maybe even quality starters who see the writing on the wall and maybe feel like the main reason they went to Colorado was to play for one Mr. Nick Saban. And so without Nick Saban there, it changes things. It changes what their future could be. It changes how they view the program. And obviously, who knows if they want to play for that coach. A lot of the coaches that are being considered for the job are in the mix for a lot of these recruits anyway. So they chose not to play for them already. Will they choose to play for them now? Who knows? But this can also hurt Colorado, and this is kind of more of something I'd worry about if I were a Colorado fan. Now, obviously, it's a bit of a stretch, and we don't even know who the head coach is, but let me do a little scheming, a little bit of conspiracy theoryism for you. I majored in conspiracy theories. No, I'm just kidding. Did not. Wish I did. That'd be really cool, though. This can affect Deion Sanders' future at Colorado in a major way. Now, I don't think he's going to be getting the Alabama job because right now the favorite was Dan Lanning. He said he's not taking it. And then Kalen DeBoer is in the mix and Dabo Sweeney. But the kind of odds-on emerging favorite is Mike Norvell at Florida State. I think that would make a lot of sense. For one, his buyout's $4 million. Does Alabama need to worry about paying buyouts, and do they need to worry about being cheap? No. But look what he's done at Florida State. He kind of saved a program that was drowning. It was drowning with Willie Taggart. It was just in horrible condition, and someone had to save it. And he did just that. led them to a 13-0 record this season. They won the ACC, not the AFC. The ACC could have made the playoff. Realistically, had Jordan Travis not got hurt, is what it came down to. Jordan Travis gets hurt and they miss the playoff. It's one of those things where they'll go down as the biggest snubs. And maybe if they make the playoff, Mike Norvell doesn't even consider leaving. But since they made the playoff and Florida State was kind of disrespected as a program, as a brand, the ACC was disrespected as a conference, maybe he feels that if he goes to Alabama, that'll never happen to him again, regardless of the playoff expanding. He'll have the resources. He'll have everything he needs in Alabama that he may feel like he's not getting in Florida State, excuse me. Plus, he's already killing it in recruiting at Florida State. But how does this affect Deion Sanders? Well, if Mike Norvell is hired as the Alabama head coach, Deion Sanders was already overlooked once to be the head coach of Florida State. Okay. He went there. He was a star there at football, baseball, track. Probably could have hooped if he wanted to. He just seemed like one of the best athletes we've ever seen. I'm sure if you hand him a basketball and threw him on the hardwood, he'd survive. But Deion Sanders, one of the best athletes to ever grace the Florida State campus, has coaching experience at Jackson State, was a success there, brought tons of attention to Colorado, and whether people want to admit it or not, had a successful first year at Colorado. He quadrupled their win total. He turned around a program that was irrelevant. He won 4 games. And most importantly, a lot of people overlook this, he got them into the Big 12. So he has that appeal. He himself said, and I can't argue with him because we don't know what would happen or not. But he said if he was the head coach of Florida State, they would not have been left out of the playoff. And if you're Florida State, you've kind of been getting battered and bruised in the media. Everyone's kind of like talking about how you're not what you think you are. You're not that guy, pal. To quote that one famous meme, you're not that guy. If Coach Prime is there and they're having success, Florida State will be the most popular program in college football. Coach Prime has already turned Colorado into the most popular program in college football. Imagine what he could do with a traditional blue blood type program. So if Mike Norvell is hired, does Florida State come for Deion Sanders and offer him the job? And I think it'd be an interesting hire. I think it would be an interesting it'd be interesting to see what he does. He hasn't even assembled his staff at Colorado yet. We don't know who. We assume the offensive coordinator is Pat Shurmur. We don't know who the defensive coordinator is. There's a lot of things that we saw in year 1 in Colorado where it's like, maybe he still has room for improvement as an overall CEO of a coach. Either way, you go to Florida State. I'm sure it'd be really easy to attract a staff there. He could hire whoever he wants, probably. I mean, he could bring his staff over from Colorado. I'm sure he would consider that. Or he could go out and get some of the biggest names in college football. He could be like, hey, Joe Brady, you want to return to college football? Come over to Florida State for me. You don't have to recruit because that's always kind of the rumor with Joe Brady is he doesn't want to recruit. And you could just call plays for me and we will have at it. Also, a lot of people are going to argue, well, Sheduer, Travis, Shiloh, they can't transfer again. Transfer rules have changed a little bit, and there is now basically free for all. You can do whatever you want. Players can transfer consecutive years without being punished, and that rule would certainly apply to Sheduer, Travis, and all of them. And realistically, for them to leave, Coach Prime would have to leave, and then Florida State, Alabama, Colorado would all have that 30-day opening, and it would be a straight up disaster for Colorado because obviously you really want to see what Coach Prime could build this program into. But I've talked about it and I've talked about it countless times. There was only a handful of jobs that I realistically saw Deion Sanders leaving Colorado for. Texas A&M was one that I thought was a possibility. It opened up. I don't know. I don't think it was the right time for him. Maybe if it was a couple years down the line, maybe they would have come for him, but they still have a lot of booster things. And that was just a big Texas job. He didn't go there. Florida, but does he go to a rival? Florida's not open at the moment. It might be open next year. Unfortunately, Billy Napier has one of the worst, toughest schedules in college football to deal with. Miami, again, does he go to a rival? Mario Cristobal is recruiting really well, has terrible game management, and mismanaged the heck out of Tyler Van Dyke, and has kind of had this track record, which I don't know if a lot of people are talking enough about, of having talented quarterbacks and kind of making them not look good. We saw it with Justin Herbert. We saw it with Anthony Brown, the Boston College transfer. We saw it with Tyler Van Dyke, who was a projected first-round pick at one point and ended up transferring. So maybe Mario Cristobal has a problem with the offense. Who knows? But if Norvell takes the head coaching job at Alabama, does Florida State automatically go, okay, Coach Prime, you come here, you pick up where our program has left off. I think a lot of players would be interested in playing for him in Florida. He's already shown the ability to recruit kids to Colorado from Florida and Georgia and Texas and wherever you want to go. Imagine what he could do at Florida. Now, the thing that could be preventing this is he says he loves Colorado, he loves where he's at, and he loves that all of his kids are there. He moved his mom and his family out to Boulder. He loves it. He loves Boulder. Obviously, I think a move basically 2 years in a row would be a lot. I think that'd be a lot to adjust to. I think realistically, he's kind of the face of the Big 12, whereas Florida State, which honestly he could probably get them into the SEC if he wanted to, if he went there, the Big 10, whatever, maybe. Florida State's kind of in a troublesome conference. Does he want to deal with conference realignment again? So I think there's a lot of reasons as to why he could go to Florida State, but there are also quite a few as to why he wouldn't. Maybe it's too short notice. Maybe he doesn't want to start over. But if it opened next year, that would be interesting. But it all depends on what Mr. Mike Norvell does. Is Mike Norvell even the head coach at Alabama? Will he be offered? We don't know. But we know it's likely not going to be Steve Sarkisian, so Texas is safe. We know it's probably not going to be Dan Lanning because he already announced he was back. So it really comes down to, for me, Kalen DeBoer from Washington and Mike Norvell. Obviously, if Washington opens up, Colorado fans are fine. If Florida State opens up, it'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Colorado, but that's kind of how the cookie crumbles. Shout out to Nick Saban for a hell of a career. Hopefully your life and endeavors after Alabama are what you dreamed of. I imagine he will work his way onto TV. He's been great with the Pat McAfee show this entire year, and who knows what to make of Nick Saban's next steps, but it'll be interesting to see what happens at Alabama. So stay tuned. I will keep you guys covered on all things Colorado and what is next for the Buffs. But first, a word from our sponsors over at Game Time. You shouldn't have to worry about when you buy tickets to your next big event. Game Time is a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you with killer last-minute deals, all in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. You get views from all the seats in the venue. You could kind of click on a spot. Maybe you want to sit in section 108 and kind of scope it out a little bit. Where are you at the 50-yard line? Are you behind someone? Are you at one of those baseball stadiums where there's like a random pole, like Fenway? Game Time lets you see all of these things. So you see the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what you expect. They have all-in prices that show you your upfront total, so you know you're going to get a great deal before you check out. And you can buy tickets in seconds with 2 taps. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets to Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON, LOCKED, capital ON, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. I appreciate you guys for tuning in and making me your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, give me 5 stars on Apple and Spotify. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Sheduer Sanders, he had a message with all this Alabama drama going on. He had a message for the Alabama transfers, and it was a simple one, but it is an effective one. And I don't know if Colorado, like I said, I don't think they're going to be getting Caleb Downs or whatever defensive stud they got returning. Like, those guys are either going to stay, end up in Georgia, Texas, whatever it may be. Colorado's best chances are to kind of get the stragglers, the guys who had somewhat of a role or maybe no role at all, which is okay because obviously just adding depth doesn't hurt. And then obviously sometimes you just got to take a chance on these guys and see what they're made of. But he had I guess 3-word, 5-character or 5, I'm going to call it characters message for those guys. He had the little eyeball emoji on Twitter and said, Alabama players, tap in. Like I said earlier, they obviously all have the ability to enter the portal for the next 30 days. So the portal opens for Alabama players. It opens for them to kind of reset and figure out what they want to do. And then Jordan Seaton also weighed in. He said, especially if you're on scout team or second team. Like, what you doing? Like, what are you doing with your life? You don't love your folks? Come make history. Obviously, referring to Colorado. And I think I love this approach from the two Buffs. I really do, because honestly, if you're Colorado, you've already while their class isn't ranked first in the portal, they have a way better portal class this year than they do last year. I talked about a couple days ago. They got DJ McKinney from Oklahoma State, who I think helps form the best corner duo in the Big 12 with he and Travis Hunter. It obviously helps to have both Marion Cooper, who started pretty much every game, and Cormani McLean waiting in the wings, but you basically have 4 starting caliber corners and just make them duke it out. See who wants a starting job bad enough. See who can win the job. Then, obviously, they needed offensive line help. The offensive line was horrible, and they went out and got 5 offensive linemen, all of which started, all of which barely. I think they allowed like 5 or 6 combined snaps between the 5 of them. Colorado's offensive line, for reference, gave up 56. So, yeah, huge upgrade there. They add a ton of weapons. They had Will Shepard from Vanderbilt, a wide receiver, Chaman Mateo from Cincinnati, a tight end, big body guy that could block, that could catch passes, could do a little bit of everything. They had Terrell Timmons from North Carolina State. They also added Cordell Russell. And then they added LeJohntay Wester from Florida Atlantic. So their wide receiver room is now Travis Hunter, LeJohntay Wester, Jimmy Horn, whoever, Will Shepard. They have tons of weapons. And then, not to mention, they bolster the secondary by adding Preston Hodge from Liberty. And, I already mentioned the secondary. They bolster the defense line. They bolster the linebacker room. They have a lot of improved players, guys that started, that are going to come in, probably start right away, or at least contribute right away. And things are going to be a lot different for the Buffs this upcoming year. It's really going to be a sight to behold, because obviously the Big 12 is up for grabs. I think Utah is really good. I think Arizona will be good. Other than that, I don't trust any one of those other teams. And I think Colorado has a chance to compete right away. It's going to be interesting to see what goes down. But Sheduer Sanders, Jordan Seaton, they are making their pitches heard. Maybe they made relationships with these guys in high school football or Under Armour All-American games. If you're Jordan Seaton, start pitching. Worst thing that could happen is you don't get one. Best thing that could happen is you add more depth and talent to your roster and make a push. Because again, next year, to make the playoff, you just got to win your conference. And Colorado is currently in position to where I think they have a chance to at least contend for the Big 12. But it's going to be really interesting to see where all these Alabama guys end up, if they stay. But there's for sure going to be some departures. It's just going to be one of those things of who the next head coach is and whether they want to play for him or not. And then Coach Prime is hard to turn down. So if Coach Prime didn't get a chance to recruit them once before, he'll get a chance now, and he's going to have a hell of a sales pitch for these Alabama transfers. This episode of Locked on Buffs is also brought to you by our sponsors over at FanDuel. The NFL regular season is wrapping up, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place just a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose, for just $5. The app is super easy to use, and there's so many different ways to bet, like live same-game parlays. You can find bets in the new Explore tab, or you can make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, which is the best way to find the popular parlays around the community. And there's more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel is the official partner of the NFL. Welcome back to Locked on Buffs. I appreciate you guys for tuning in, making me your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. My everydayers. I appreciate you guys, all your support. Make sure to like, subscribe, give me those 5 stars, and let's dive right back into college football. The future of college football. Now, I think Coach Prime kind of touched on this on social media, and I think Nick Saban's retirement really showcased what direction college football is going in. I think it's a direction that a lot of older coaches are willing to step away from, because it's a lot of work and it's a lot of changes and stuff that they don't want to deal with, quite simply. But yesterday, when Nick Saban retired, Coach Prime tweeted, "Wow, college football just lost the GOAT to retirement. I knew it. I knew it would happen one day soon, but not this soon. The game has changed so much that it chased the GOAT away. College football, let's hold up our mirrors and say honestly what you see." Now, obviously, Coach Prime is not shying away from calling out where college football is headed. NIL is ridiculous. The transfer portal is ridiculous. Everything about college football right now is ridiculous. When the windows open for the portal, players opting out for bowl games. It's really sad to see what college football has become. Now, obviously, it sounds hypocritical of Coach Prime to say, the transfer portal, it's changing college football. He's obviously going to play by the rules. There are no rules right now to regulate what is happening. So obviously, you have to play by the rules. But to go back to Nick Saban, college football used to be a thing that he dominated, and I don't think anyone could ever dominate college football again. I think you could constantly be in the mix, but I don't think you would ever dominate the sport like Nick Saban did, because Nick Saban used to recruit the number one class in the country every single year, and he would have guys that were 4 and 5 stars from wherever, California, Alabama, Florida, Georgia, New York. They would go to Alabama to play for him, to play in that dynasty, and they would wait their turn. There was no transferring. It was rarely a thing. So he would just have rosters loaded with 5 stars waiting their turn to play. Whereas now you max get a 5-star for 1 or 2 years. If he doesn't play right away and doesn't really see a path to the field in year 2, he's gone. And he will look for the biggest NIL deal to see what's next for him. And that's just kind of the world we live in. College football has turned into a never-ending free agency. It has turned into a never-ending cycle of who wants me now and what can you do for me now, rather than what will you do for me back then, or what did you do for me? It's just one of those things. It's what the sport has turned into. I think Coach Prime is referencing that by saying college football chased away the GOAT, which it did. I think Nick Saban talked about he didn't really have health issues. He didn't really he just said he couldn't do it anymore. And I don't think he wanted to continue to navigate what this college football world is. I think there's a lot of problems to figure out in college football. And I think we are going to see a ripple effect. We saw 20 players from both, I think Florida State and Georgia both had around or over 20 players sit out in their bowl game. And that was a disgusting display of college football. 63-3. Game may as well not have even played. I know they're exhibition games, but that bowl games used to mean something. And it's not on the players for thinking they don't mean anything, because people around college football tell them they don't mean anything. So there's a huge epidemic of college football right now where people are trying to do this balancing act of like, oh, the sport's being ruined, but why wouldn't the players do this? So we have to figure out a way to kind of bring some cohesiveness, to bring some, stability back to the sport we once loved. But Coach Prime mentioned it. I think Nick Saban kind of alluded to it. I think it's easier and less stressful on him to stop playing this game of recruiting guys nonstop, to playing this social media game nonstop. And luckily for Colorado and Coach Prime, he's really good at social media. He has a whole social media team devoted to making sure that he is looking like the coolest coach out there. And I think realistically, college football just changed too much for Nick Saban. And I think there's a lot of change that need to happen to kind of reset what college football used to be. Obviously, there's the players being paid is a great thing. Obviously, the transfer portal is a great thing, but now it's just they either need to regulate when these guys can enter the portal, they need to move the season back or something. But there's a lot of changes that need to be made, and we saw the first of many older coaches step away from the game, and it just so happened to be the best one to ever do it. So it's going to be a crazy next few days. Obviously, like I said earlier, Colorado could kind of be affected in 2 ways. They could get some transfer portal talent, or if Mike Norvell is hired, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Florida State and Coach Prime. Is this the time that he goes, or does Florida State maybe look for a more experienced, more proven coach at the Power 5 level? It'll be interesting, but I know one thing. I'm going to keep you covered here on Locked On Buffs. I appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day and making me your first listen. Make sure to go give me 5 stars on Apple or Spotify, or make sure to subscribe on YouTube. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. I hope you guys have a great Thursday, and I will see you guys tomorrow.